Welcome to Career Tracks, Owning Researcher Identities Beyond Academia. My name is Anna Favalesa, Team Leader for the Careers Consultants for Researchers team here at King's Careers and Employability, and I'm co-presenting with the lovely Vanny.
Hi everyone, I'm Vanny Nike. I'm here presenting my role as an independent freelance research consultant, but you might also know me as I work at Edinburgh Napier University as a researcher developer.
Thanks, Vanny. So we had some high funding, and with that we created 3 outputs that we put under the title of Career Tracks. So we were particularly looking at what do postdoctoral researchers do next if they choose to leave academia. And so we developed some case studies with Vanny's help, and we wrote a report looking at some of the literature that already exists on researcher careers. And we also developed a trying out career options online resources toolkit that I will talk about later. And so what were we trying to achieve? We were trying to tackle some of the issues that we often saw in appointments around researcher careers to do with researcher identity and confidence, if you're thinking about moving out, understanding career transition and normalising some of those emotional responses that you can have to career change, and creating a sort of resource bank of inspiration from those who've been there and done that, and being able to help researchers learn from each other. So, Vanny, over to you.
One of the things that came out from the literature review was that most postdocs go into 3 different areas. And the first of those areas is where they move into careers where there's actually no responsibility to do research, but they may do things like literature reviews or evaluations. And one example of a case study participant was someone who was a teaching fellow, but then has become a yoga teacher and a business owner. And what was really interesting is that although on the surface it may seem that yoga teacher is very far from being a postdoc, actually as part of being an entrepreneur, they had to do lots of grant writing, data analysis, all the research skills kind of all came into it. So it's actually a very relevant career move from being a postdoc. And the next section would be for people who actually do continue on with research in their careers after being a postdoc. So we had one of those examples was someone who was a postdoc, as you can see, for many years, about 8 years there, and now they work in a biotech company working in mental health care. Now, this person knew that they didn't want to necessarily stay in academia, but took all the learning that they did from their postdoc, knowing that it'll be helpful in their future career. And the third section is about people who, you know, like myself and Anna, work in the academy. We don't necessarily have a research or teaching responsibilities. And we had one example here of someone who's now a research integrity officer. And as you can imagine, all that research experience is super helpful in that role. And this person is still publishing research occasionally, but it's very much a sort of a side thing that they do on this on their own time. One of the things that kind of came out of doing all the case studies is we had some clear points that came up. So for many people after working in academia, they did find a bit of a culture shock when working for an organization that wasn't a university institution. So for example, you know, the number of meetings, for example, but also interestingly about that they were asked to just focus on work that was just good enough. They didn't have to have something that was perfect. And as Anna already mentioned at the very beginning, the identity and emotional side also definitely came through. And here's an example, I think, that really kind of shows the difference between working in academia and outside. So for example, you know, in academia, a fast deadline could be in a week's time, whereas, you know, in this person's job, which was in a hospital, it was, if it's 9 o'clock, urgent means 9:45, and they have to do quite a lot of work in that 45 minutes. So definitely a bit of a shift change there. The next thing I would just quickly talk about is that there were some useful recommendations that kind of came out from the case studies. We won't talk about it all here, but the best thing to say is that they love people like Anna. Using the career service was great. They loved it. And we just need to recommend and get more people using that. Can we move on? Yeah. And now on to you, Anna.
Thank you, Vanny. So another part of the project was something that Kate Murray, when she was in a team, managed in collaboration with Tracy Basoli. And they're also doing a REDS talk, so go and listen to their talk too. And this was really to expand some of the thinking around internships that kept coming up as a way to get work experience for researchers, but that we felt might not be very manageable if you're research staff trying to think about getting 3 months out of your role for something different. And so we were trying to expand that thinking around, okay, what is meaningful work experience? How can I get some insight into other sectors if I'm thinking about moving into something beyond or outside academia? And we also wanted to make it's quite scaffolded. So we've talked about the different types of things you can do to gain some insight, and I'll show you a sort of framework in a minute. But we wanted it to be quite scaffolded because we found things like we often as careers consultants might say, oh, just go and have a coffee with someone or arrange a meeting and have an information interview. And people say, okay. And then you think, well, that's actually quite difficult to do. And so we've develop videos and example questions and all of those kind of things that would help people really understand how to put those things into practice if it's not something that they're comfortable with. And really creating that, as it says here, a sort of online version of some of the conversations that we were having in appointments. And we also created a little page of talking to your group leader about getting different bits of experience. And this is our kind of framework, so that the idea is it goes from the bottom to the top in terms of what takes more or less time and resource. So at the bottom is talking to people, information interviewing, going right all the way up to something like a secondment, which obviously takes a lot of organising and is very substantial as a bit of work experience. I hope that's given you a very quick overview of our Career Tracks project. For further conversation or ideas, feedback, anything you'd like to collaborate with, you can see our emails there. Anna at King's and Vanny, who's at Napier at the moment, and also freelance.
Thank you so much. And we're obviously both on LinkedIn.
Of course.
Of course. Thanks, everyone.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.